Hi, I'm Bao. Today I want to share with you a build that I like to call Summon Raging Miners. It uses a 5-link Tremor Rod combined with a spell totem that casts Detonate Mines to summon a horde of raging spirits and support a party with stronger auras than a conventional self-cast SRS build. Sure, it's clunky and it requires a lot of attention to detail for good clear speed, but it kills things insanely fast when played properly, and it's dirt cheap to gear up. And with how strong and popular physical attack builds are right now, I think it's just the right time to be devising a build that runs Hatred, Haste, and Vaal Haste on anabolic steroids, and also brings 2 totems and a Chaos Golem for running Meat Shield interference for your friends. Now, much like your average SRS build, this witch runs Clarity, Hatred, and Haste. But because her spirit spawn rate is tied to mine laying speed instead of cast speed thanks to the Tremor Rod, Haste doesn't really help her much. With this in mind, I run Haste, Hatred, and Vaal Haste, all on Generosity, inside of an Alpha's Howl. This means that my spirits and party buddies get to enjoy a level 22 Haste, supported by a level 22 Generosity. That's 30% increased attack speed instead of the 22% that a conventional SRS provides. Did I mention that phys builds love me? Because I don't even curse mobs most of the time, and my damage boost is still absurd for all my friends. But Cha, you say, that's an Alpha's Howl. How am I going to get my hands on one so early in a league? Alright, let's be a bit more stingy. Let's tighten the budget. No Alpha Howl. In fact, no Belly of the Beast either. We're still looking at a haste that gives you 28% increased attack speed instead of the conventional SRS's 22 for their friends. Take off the Belly of the Beast and we're still looking at about 4,300 life, which to me is perfectly fine to kill at Siri. Sure, you're probably going to want to farm up a little currency and get a belly for going into 80 maps, level 78 or level 80 maps or something like that. But for killing at Siri, I feel like 4,300 is just fine. Now the passive tree. The passive tree is similar to a conventional self-cast SRS build. It prioritizes aura nodes, it prioritizes skill duration, it prioritizes minion damage. There's your aura nodes, your skill duration, minion damage, minion damage, minion damage, just like the SRS builds. However, the difference, the caveat for this build, is that instead of cast speed, it takes jaunts out to the east and west respectively for volatile mines, clever construction, and ancestral bond. Frankly, I was on the fence about needing clever construction, but then Calm's dream happened. Um, there's Ground Slam, and there's Firestorm, and there's shit that blows up on the floor. I think it's called Fire Mortar. I really don't know what it is, but oh my. And they aren't the only mobs either, like Tentacle Miscreations, Leapers, Archers, Spark Mages. They're all a pain in the ass without clever construction for a miner. Especially if you don't have meat shields to run interference. And frankly, your totems aren't going to be that, or your totem isn't going to be that helpful in the beginning. Maybe your Chaos Golem will help a little, but for the most part, you're going to have a lot of mines going down because you got ground attacked by something. Volatile Mines I felt was also pretty essential for prepping for boss fights, as the spell totem doesn't detonate any mines unless there's a nearby monster. So give me about 5 seconds and I can spawn a horde of 35 to 40 spirits. That's with volatile mines. If you take that away from me and make me and give me like a cast time on my mine detonation, now we're talking about the horde dwindling to about 25 spirits at the start of a boss fight, which I felt was unacceptable. I also grabbed Ancestral Bond over here on the west so that I can summon an Arc Totem to apply Elemental Equilibrium. I also have Elemental Equilibrium right there. And that further boosts the damage of any party member that runs a popular physical skill like Ice Crash or Split Arrow or maybe even a self-cast SRS build. I tell you what, the synergy that happens between this witch I'm running and a conventional SRS build is unreal. Between the Turbo Haste, the Turbo Vaal Haste, the Arc Totem, and another Vaal Haste linked to increased duration, we can keep an SRS build casting faster than they ever dreamed possible. We're talking like 60 to 70 spirits up between the two of us during large fights. and all of those spirits are benefiting from some pretty intense aura buffs. This is way more support than your average SRS build would ever dare to provide, primarily because they want the haste for themselves too. And you may be thinking now, but Cha, why all the extra hassle when you could just buy a staff with +3 to fire gems? Well, first of all, I like budget-friendly builds that can still kick ass in endgame content. A staff with +3 to fire gems is universally recognized as valuable, and because of that, it'll cost about half a dozen exalts, unlinked. On the other hand, a Tremor Rod is the kind of unique that will have most players turning up their noses. When 2.0 hits, you and your friends are going to be farming maps, and you're going to be hearing groans from them every time they drop one of these Tremor Rods. As far as I can tell, it's horribly unreliable for applying damage with damagey spells like Storm Call, or Arc, or Firestorm, or Glacial Cascade. So this staff is probably going to be dirt cheap. Even more to that point, SRS is a spell that isn't affected by spell damage or mine damage, so we can focus all of our efforts on finding a Tremor Rod with near perfect mine laying speed and buy it for a song. That's 2 or 3 chaos for your endgame weapon instead of 6+ exalts. Even a staff with +2 to fire gems is sometimes tough to find in the first few days of a league. I'd rather have a build that I know I can get up and running ASAP without having to round sitting and waiting for someone to drop the stick that I'm looking for, only to have to compete with all the other SRS players also trying to get their hands on that damn thing. Second, running SRS in a 5-link Tremor Rod allows me to support it with 4 minion damage oriented gems instead of 3, as you can see right here. Melee phys, multistrike, minion damage, and added fire. I could put in minion speed in place of one of these guys. I swap added fire out for melee splash when I'm mapping, but I've been doing it series, so, well, it's added fire. But it allows me to support SRS with 4 minion damage oriented gems instead of 3 as a self-cast build would, because, well, they need echo or faster casting or something in their 5-link. And that leaves them with only 3 supports for their minions. That's kind of sad. So I've been running it series, so I haven't been using melee splash, as I said, but I definitely recommend it for mapping. Minion speed, like I said, is another great gem worth considering ever since the changes were made and they added increased attack speed and increased cast speed to it. I think it's fantastic for helping you chain your spirits from one pack to the next when you're mapping. However, you do suffer a bit of a dip in damage. But honestly, if I could find a way to get around the prohibitive mana cost of at least 600 mana per second, I would definitely be using minion speed as my 5th support gem, without question. On that note, I think it's worth mentioning that even a 5-link Tremor Rod requires a mana flask in order to spam mines uninterrupted. I still wanted to recover some life when I pushed 3, especially in Itsiri, because, you know, if I get hit by something, it kind of hurts. So I opted for a hybrid flask. I grabbed several jewel sockets as well, as you can see here, 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 and over on the right by Clever Construction. And I opted for percent reduced mana cost of skills and minion damage as much as I could. I also grabbed life in some of them. I mean, my ideal gem would be mine laying speed, life, minion damage, and reduced mana cost of skills, but good luck finding one of those. But I also grabbed the Dynamo Notable while I was working with the 5-link to help further reduce my mana cost of skills. This shit was still outrageously expensive. And that was just with a 5-link, let alone a 6-link. So when I first got my hands on a 6-link Tremor Rod, which you can see here, I tried to run 5 damage-oriented supports for an effective 7-link. But even with a catalyzed Eternal Mana Flask, which gives insane mana recovery, I still encountered mana issues. I honestly don't think that they expected us to try and combine these supports in this staff, as the mana cost multipliers are just enormous. But I didn't want the 6-link to go completely to waste, so I popped in reduced mana. This allowed me to A, put another instant life flask in my 3 slot instead of this stupid hybrid flask, and also to spam mines to my heart's content. Now I have no mana issues whatsoever anytime, no matter how much I spam. And giving up on running that 5th minion support gem It was a really painful compromise because I saw the potential in how much damage each spirit could do, but it had to be done. If I can't churn out 30 plus spirits compared to the conventional SRS's like 22 or 25 or whatever, it's just not worth it to me. So yeah, make no mistake. This build is clunky and it's awkward and it's fraught with lots and lots of button pushing. My W summons the detonate mines totem. My Q summons the arc totem. My right click is the actual mine spam. I have to continuously be casting flesh offering. I mean, luckily for me, it's got nice duration on it, but it's still annoying to have to be upkeeping the flesh duration or the flesh offering as well as planning the mines, making sure the totems are in the right place. It's tedious. Transitioning smoothly from one pack to the next is significantly more difficult than the self-cast version. If your focus is on high solo clear speed maps, you're probably going to have an easier time with a rare +2 to Fire Gem staff, and you just 5-link it and go. I wish that I'd managed to resolve all of these mana issues before the wipe, as this build still clearly needs some work. But I at least wanted to share what progress I have made with you, and maybe glean some insight from the community. So if you guys have any ideas for a way to improve her, I am all ears. That said, I'm Chasu Bao, and I will see you in raid class. Thanks for watching.